Part 150. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1496. Able to carry out multiple transformations. Ability to specify capabilities. There is no upper limit to the intensity of transformation, at least, under legend, there is no upper limit for the time being. The only thing that limits the speed of its transformation may be the energy supply of the dragon nest, and, Gretel has only one person, an oak staff and a mobile tower spirit to help him calculate and preside over the magic circle. Even so, Golden Dragon Saverai also felt a strong crisis. He stayed in Huasca's dragon lair for 10 days and watched as the black clouded leopard was successfully transformed, adding dragon scales, claws and breath. Next, a barbarian was successfully transformed. He was obviously taller, and his arms, chest, and all exposed skin were covered with a thin layer of dragon scales. His muscles were knotted, his breath was spitting out heat, and he started eating and drinking so much that he could kill an entire blue sheep in one breath. A blue sheep that weighs about as much as a savage. Next, a dwarf was successfully transformed. Although the body did not become huge, and dragon scales and claws did not appear, the aura of the dwarf became obviously more condensed, and the speed and power of casting spells also increased to a higher level. In 10 days, 3 shots and 3 hits. Moreover, Saverai could clearly see that the abilities each transformed person received were related to his or her basic abilities, and there was absolutely no waste. Such efficiency. Such accuracy. To put it bluntly, the dependents who can accept the transformation are all the elites in the territory. Either a lone wilderness hunter, the king of a herd, or the leader or warrior of a tribe. These relatives were captured and reformed, and half of them died. He feels very distressed too. If things go on like this, there will be fewer people working for him and fewer people paying tribute to him, which will also affect the development of his strength. No, no, no. There is no need to continue like this. If he continues to reform like this, he will lose. Although there is an upper limit to the energy of the dragon's nest, Huascar's territory is quite vast, and it is not particularly difficult to find more energy sources. Although Gretel is alone, it is not difficult to build several magic circles. As for calculations, hosting a magic circle? Flying from Dragon Island to Nevis, an adult dragon flies at full speed, and the round trip will definitely take less than a month. To buy a mobile tower spirit, the majestic dragon came to buy it in person. How dare those human magicians refuse to give face? Maybe, he can hire a few more spellcasters to help him host the magic circle. Alas, when we made the bet, we didn't say no humans were allowed to help. It was really a mistake. The head of the golden dragon Saverai was spinning wildly. No, we have to find a way to separate this human magician from Vasca. Well, it seems that separation is impossible, or quite difficult. This human magician is obviously pursuing Sarara. Since he is pursuing Sarara, it is impossible not to help her brother. Or at least, find something else to do for this human magician, instead of helping Vasca transform his dependents all day long. The golden dragon Saverai buried all his thoughts in his heart and stayed close to Flavia, just talking and laughing with her and discussing non-stop. After finally surviving these 10 days, when he returned to Sky Dragon City to change defenses, Saverai spread his wings and plunged into the area responsible for the Golden Dragon clan, and found his uncle. Uncle, let me tell you, great progress has been made in transforming dependents recently. The legendary Golden Dragon Peregrine folded his wings and put his head on the wingtips, seemingly sleeping but not sleeping. After listening to his nephew's long speech, he snorted a spark from his nose and turned his head disdainfully. So? Why are you telling me this? Uncle. This technique is very important to us. Saverai circled around him, from the left to the right of the legendary Golden Dragon, and from the right to the left, trying to meet his eyes. Look, is it possible to mention it to the Council of Elders and ask the human magician to come up and study it? Why do you remember this? Peregrine simply closed his eyes. He patrolled the front line for a full year, killed dozens of sneaks, blocked 15 cracks that suddenly appeared, and also pulled 2 bolides from outside the boundary to prepare to enrich his dragon's nest. After working so hard all at once, he is now very tired and just wants to sleep. If Savory hadn't been his nephew, he would have swung his tail and knocked this buzzing guy away. Even if it's his nephew, he'd better get to the point quickly, his patience is running out. Oh, didn't I make a bet with Vasca? We agreed that each side would transform 100 dependents. What nonsense, Peregrine was furious. He raised his neck and sprayed a puff of dragon's breath over his head, making Savory roll and crawl. Why do you need so many dependents? Tell me, why do you need so many dependents? How many dependents do you need for your dragon nest? Is the quota full? It's full, it's only 10 or 8. Savory rolled, resisted, quickly pulled up, and quickly dived, finally avoiding his uncle's lesson. To be honest, a giant dragon only needs 10 or 8 dragon blood relatives to guard the dragon's nest and take care of some tasks that he is too lazy to do. No more is necessary. He is not married yet and does not need a family to serve the young dragon. How many dependents can your territory support? With so many dragon blood dependents, what will they eat and drink? Well, each tribe gets a dragon blood relative. Are you afraid they won't fight? The power structure in the territory also needs to keep the strength of the family members apart. Get 10 or 8 dragon blood dependents, you can manage an entire territory, get hundreds of them, they won't be convinced by anyone, they can fight on their own. This is Dragon Island. You are surrounded by people of your own race. We are not going to send them out in force to compete with other dragons for territory. What's the point of studying this technology? This is no longer the ancient era when dragons and humans competed for territory. The upper limit of dragon blood dependence is not high, and they cannot be dragged to work in Sky Dragon City. They are not qualified to be cannon fodder. Savory was disgraced by the lesson. Finally, his uncle finished teaching him a lesson, covered his head with his wings, curled up into a ball and went to sleep. He had no choice but to cast a silencing spell on himself and exit quietly. Still not willing to accept it, I thought about it and ran to a bronze dragon friend. Bogdan, don't you have a subordinate who has always wanted to transform her into a dragon-blooded creature, but has never dared to do it? He excitedly encouraged. I just had an opportunity recently. I met a human magician. He helped Vasca transform 3 dependents, and all 3 were successful. When did that happen to you? Bogdan yawned lazily. I like Rosanna very much. Yes, I want to transform her into a dragon-blooded creature, give her a longer life, and let her be with me for a longer time. Yes. But that was 30 years ago. Already? 30 years ago. Ah. Savory was so embarrassed that his scales dimmed. At first glance, he thought he had changed from a golden dragon to a brass dragon. Bogdan flicked his tail in annoyance. In addition to Rosanna, I also want to transform Juvia, Katarina, and Arinbi, but that was a long time ago. Now I am pursuing Salonia. Don't mention the past things again. May I? Savory left in disgrace. After thinking about it, he still couldn't help but watch himself lose the bet, so he kept up his efforts and ran to Elder Batista. It was this elder who brought the human magician to Sky Dragon City before. He must be very concerned about and interested in that little mage, and he must be willing to listen to me. If that Nordmark mage makes some achievements, asking Elder Batista to find a way to get him up is the most likely possibility. Elder, I recently went to Dragon Island. He ignored all the mention of the pursuit of the crystal dragon and the bet. He went straight to the topic and found an entry point that the elders should be interested in. I saw that Master Nordmark's transformation of the dragon blood familia was very unique. He gave those familia whatever abilities he wanted to give them, and he allowed them to advance to as many levels as he wanted them to advance. I think, if he can give the dragon-blooded clan the ability of a giant dragon, then it should also be possible to specifically improve the capabilities of our clan? Well, at first, Elder Batista only had the attitude of "I'll give you a face and listen to whatever you want." Gradually, he became more and more focused. Compared to Savory, the elder thought of more things. Generally speaking, the dragon egg that cannot hatch is always the weaker one, or a few eggs in the nest. Generally speaking, the young dragons who cannot awaken their true names are weaker than their awakened brothers and sisters. If not physically weaker, they will have weaker mental capacity. If tests could be carried out in advance during the incubation stage and targeted reinforcements could be made in advance, wouldn't it be able to greatly increase the dragon's fertility rate? The same nest of eggs was incubated by the female dragon with the same hard work. 2 eggs hatched and 4 hatched, 1 awakened and 4 awakened. This is 4 times the efficiency. Let me think about it. After I finish my work for a while, I will go and talk to him. Are you done with your busy schedule? How long will it take you to finish your work? You won't be busy for a year, right? After a year of hard work, the renovation work on Huasca was also completed, and I was definitely lost. No, we have to find a way to urge the elders to bring up the Nordmark mage as soon as possible. Savory was determined to keep up the good work. Saying goodbye to the elder, he flew far away and found another adult dragon couple. Daniela, Dauda, haven't you been worried about your son? I recently met a human magician. He praised Greet's work to great effect, wishing he could praise him as the best therapist in history. Then try to recommend. Look, your son has been weak since he was a child and can't eat anything. Since that magician can give the dragon clan the abilities of his dependents, maybe he can also enhance his abilities in a targeted manner. There was such a crashing sound that it turned in a big circle. More than half a month later, Gretel, who was immersed in research, chromosome testing, and presiding over the transformation array, raised his head with a blank look on his face and looked at the giant dragons flying in groups outside the dragon's nest. The dragon army has attacked the city. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1497. If the dragon army attacked the city, Gretel would naturally have no choice but to pack up and run away immediately. After all, he does not have endless Zerg nests in his hands, nor does he have endless fleets of gods. As for humans, although he is a human being, he is the only one present, and he cannot rub farmers, harvesters, ghost soldiers, or siege tanks with his hands. And this is Vasquez Dragon's nest, not his own. Correction, he is not a dragon and does not need such a thing as a dragon's nest. If someone really comes to attack the dragon's nest, it will be over if he runs away. There is no need to defend the city for the master. Fortunately, this group of giant dragons came in force, not to cause trouble for him, or to attack the dragon's nest. First, a giant dragon flapped its wings, slowed down, and floated in front of the dragon nest platform, making a sound like a bell. Mage Nordmark. Ah! I am Gretel was stunned for a moment, looking at the giant dragon with golden red scales hanging in front of him like a sunset, and couldn't remember which branch of the dragon clan it belonged to. Golden dragon? No, the golden dragon is very pure, the same color as gold. Copper dragon? No, the copper dragon's scales are darker, more brown. Red dragon? Red dragons are a very pure, blazing red. For an older dragon like this, it should be at least in its prime, the color of its scales will be a breathtaking crimson, not a sunset-like golden red. He still knows too little about the dragon clan. If he comes to a slightly rarer dragon clan, he won't be able to recognize it at all. Uncle Leandra, Cyrilla stood on tiptoes and raised her voice to say hello. After shouting, he lowered his voice and quickly said to Gretel, "Uncle Leandra is a cloud dragon, a bit like us, both are masters of playing with wind and cold. They don't like humans, and they don't like any creature that requires magic or machinery to fly. You must be careful when dealing with him." Greet. Don't like humans. Then why are you here looking for me? Hey, I am just a doctor. When I come to see a doctor, I must have some illness or other needs. It's okay. As a doctor, I treat patients equally, as long as you have good compliance. Looking behind Yunlong Leandra, good guy, it looks like he has knocked over the pallet. Gold, silver, bronze, red, green, blue, white and black, not to mention everything, at least, all the main colors that can be thought of are available. Coupled with the huge system of the dragon clan, dozens of dragons cover half of the sky. It looks like a colorful area, giving people the feeling. Well, it's a bit stressful. Can you please turn into human form and speak again? There are so many giant dragons. If I shout at the top of my lungs, even those behind may not be able to hear what I am saying. Thinking like this, Gretel had no intention of transforming into a silver dragon and flying up to meet them. He stood firmly on the platform at the entrance of Dragon's Nest, even took a step back, raised his hand and said, "Welcome to visit. Everyone, please." Fortunately, these giant dragons didn't mean to make things difficult for him. Led by Yunlong Leandra, a group of dragons flew down on the platform and turned into human forms one by one. A group of handsome men and beauties, most of whom are elves, and there are also a few humans. Greet even saw someone who looked like a tiger man, a leopard man, and a barbarian among this group of people. The taste is very special. Of course, Greet had no room to say anything about the taste of dragons. While leading the guests inside, he greeted the giant dragons one by one and introduced each other. Just after a round of introductions, Yunlong Leandra, who was flying at the front, couldn't wait to ask. "It is said that you are transforming the dragon blood familiar? Give them whatever abilities you want to give them." This is misinformation, who is ruining my reputation. I am a human magician, I am only level 15, and I am still far away from becoming a legend. Even if I reach legend, I may not be able to evolve the genetic scissor hand function and perform such precise operations. Limited wishing techniques are not that accurate, or are you planning to let me do a job once and give me a box of diamonds? I guess after the work is done, the news the next day will be that I was robbed. Gretel opened his mouth, tried hard to suppress the ridiculous feeling, and quickly explained. "I have only analyzed a very small part of the silver dragon's chromosomes so far. Based on these studies, specific chromosome points will be inserted into the dependents to be transformed, giving them specific abilities. Not to mention that I can't give you the ability that you haven't analyzed. Even if you have analyzed the part, the success rate so far is not 100%, not even 80%. These chromosomes and points are all new words that the Dragon Clan has never heard of." Everyone looked at each other and saw confusion in each other's eyes. About a dozen places behind Yunlong Leonard, a young elf shook his long blue hair and asked, "So you can only transform the silver dragon's dependents? Can other dependents be transformed? Can success be guaranteed?" When these words came out, the dragons around him looked at each other. You gave me a look, I looked at you, and they all showed a tacit and subtle smile of everyone understands. So who are you going to transform? Modify it with your own genes. Wake up, although the lifespan of your dependents modified with your genes will be significantly longer, the overlap with your genes may be too high. If you have children in the future. Gretel was running wildly with all kinds of complaints in his mind. As a doctor, it is difficult for him to inquire into patients' privacy, let alone interfere too much. All he can do is explain it scientifically. Success, that is definitely not guaranteed. So far, the success rate of the latest batch of transformations is about 90%. Of course, it is easier to ensure immortality. Prepare a set of limited wishing materials to ensure 99% immortality. That's enough. The blue-haired elf came out from the crowd, raised his hand, and a small skin bag crossed an arc and flew in front of Gretel. This is the reward for the transformation and the limited wish-making spell. I leave it to you to transform the dependents. Next month, I will send Celia over. The skin bag spun around in the air, the mouth of the bag opened, and a few pebbles rolled out. Under the radiance of the eternal flame, they showed deep and shallow, crystal clear blue. It was obvious that this bag was full of sapphires. And the quality is quite good. Didn't you see that Cyrilla on one side and the dragons surrounding her had blue flashes in their eyes? No, wait, Gretel had no intention of coveting gems. He quickly performed a cleaning technique, threw all the sapphires back into the bag, and then tied the bag tightly. I've been too busy lately. I have to finish Waska's project first. It will probably take about a year, and then analyze your chromosomes and the chromosome points of your relatives in your territory, and compare them with each other. He sped up as the blue-haired elf looked increasingly impatient. Give me 2 years. 2 years. In 2 years, I can probably transform your Celia. You don't want to use Vaska's blood to transform the Celia you like, right? The blue-haired elf grunted and took 2 steps back. Greet listened as if he was saying, "You can't afford to wait even 2 years." He breathed a sigh of relief and slowed down his voice. Also, this is just the reward for my own spell casting. As for the reward for using the energy of Vaskar Dragon Nest, you can talk to him. I probably won't leave here in the short term. Yes. He won't run around. Cyrilla took a step forward, took Gretel's right hand, and looked around with her face raised. The blue-haired elf muttered a few words in a low voice, but did not refute. In front of him, another female elf with dark green hair said softly, "Mage Nordmark, it is said that you have special skills that can help infertile dragons get pregnant smoothly." Me. How did things spread like this? Have you spoken to Elder Batista? We've talked about it. To be honest, I have a daughter. She and her husband have been married for more than 100 years and have never been able to get pregnant. If you have time, can you provide them with some help? Greet felt bad all over. Can I say no? Can I say no? I am not an expert on dragon infertility. This topic is quite difficult. Elder Batista mentioned it to me before, but my ability is really insufficient. Perhaps you can consult the elder directly. The elders said that you just need to do more research. We can do our best to provide any research materials you need. I just ask you to help. Well, infertility is really a headache. Greet wanted to say I really can't do it, but thinking about the infertile couples in the previous life who could go to any temple and were willing to try any folk remedies, she could understand the mood of the green-haired elf. He tentatively said, "Then, please be patient. Wait until I finish the project at hand and do some preliminary research." The green-haired female elf, who didn't know whether it was a green dragon, an emerald dragon, or some kind of dragon, sighed. The only thing Greet was lucky about was that the dragons had a long life and could afford to wait. If you were a human being, if you told him, "Let me study this for 3 to 5 years, by the time the research was completed, both the couple would be almost unable to have children." Mage Nordmark, these are all things we can afford. Another elf with wheat-colored skin took a step forward and said in a loud voice, "If you can give the dragon blood family members the power of the dragon, can you specifically enhance the power of the dragon? If you can do that, can you take a look at my child? My child is about to end the baby dragon stage. If he cannot adjust at this stage, it will be more difficult later. No, you want me to reform my family members, be an infertility doctor, and be a pediatrician? My schedule is full. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1498. Don't be anxious, everyone. Don't be anxious. Although my level is quite low, Gretel said this without blushing in front of a group of adult dragons, mature dragons, and even legendary dragons. However, I am very sincere and will relieve everyone of all kinds of troubles and pains. Because I am only one person, my ability is limited, and my time is limited. Please register your needs first. Sarala beside her stretched out her hand knowingly. With a crash, a dozen huge animal skins flew out of her storage equipment and suspended in mid-air. She has no shortage of these things. Not to mention the food along the way. After Gretel arrived at Dragon Island, she had all the monsters and animal skins that her father threw out and ordered Gretel to eat. Peel it, cut it, give it to Bernard and let him tan it a little. It is used to copy magic, make scrolls, and make magic contracts. They are all excellent materials. Write it here. This is to facilitate us to leave a magic mark, right? Should I also write down how much remuneration I plan to pay by the way? If the remuneration is less, I will move to the back. Standing in the front row were older and higher level dragons, such as Cloud Dragon Leandra, who summoned a piece of animal skin without saying a word. With a finger, a bolt of lightning fell on the animal skin, winding and circling like a dragon and snake, leaving its own message. Standing in the back row, those younger and cash-strapped dragons inevitably whispered to each other. Greed looked calm and pretended not to hear or see anything. If it is an emergency, it goes without saying that if a patient is pushed in, he will be duty-bound and will pounce on him immediately. But chronic diagnosis is another matter. See the doctor's schedule and schedule it slowly. If you can't schedule it, please wait. What? Are there any projects that require a lot of scientific research, and treatment can only be carried out after the scientific research has results? That hasn't been said yet, please be patient. In about half an hour, 20 or 30 animal skins were handed over to Sarala one after another. Some of them were provided by Sarala, and some were even taken out of their own pockets by the dragon who didn't grab the animal skins. On the animal skin, frost, water flow, lightning, and various forces are winding and jumping on the animal skin. In addition to each person's needs, of course there is also the name, race, and the reward they are willing to give. Most importantly, there is also the location of each dragon's lair, as well as a map to get there. When Gretel passes by, he only needs to step into the territory and hold up the animal skin to inspire him a little. The breath on the animal skin is equivalent to an invitation, allowing the family members in the corresponding territory to treat him as a distinguished guest and respectfully welcome him to the dragon's nest. Sarala checked it over and found that it was very good. At least these dragons had maintained their basic decency. Everyone uses animal skins, and no one is willing to use animal skins. They use their own old scales to do the work. I have received all your needs. A thick pile of animal skins was piled next to it, forming a large bed, large enough for Gretel to jump on and roll around. Greed scanned it from a distance without taking a closer look, and said with a smile, "I will prioritize based on my own abilities and the progress of the research and complete it slowly. Please be patient and don't push too hard. Pushing is useless." Then, is there any way to speed up your research progress? The wheat-colored male elf asked anxiously. The ones who spoke before were either reforming their dependents. To be honest, whether the dependents were transformed or not, it was still the same. No matter how beautiful your beloved dependents were, they would eventually get married seriously to the female dragon. Either it's infertility. To be honest, if you haven't given birth to a child for more than 100 years, it's not too late. It is the same whether you are born 1 year later, 10 years later, or 20 years later. But he can't. His children can't wait. He and his wife laid 3 eggs in this clutch, and 2 hatched out. Only this one awakened his true name. He is also sickly and congenitally weak. Blame that unfortunate earthquake. It was so good that they were not dead, but just when the child was about to hatch, there was a shock, destroying the magic circle they used to protect the dragon egg and gather energy. As a result, their children are born with deficiencies and hatch in a hurry, which is equivalent to premature birth. Their child, who is already 3 years old, cannot even eat the poisonous sac of a giant scorpion and will vomit after eating it. How can this be done? Well, Gretel actually wanted to speed up his research. To be honest, after his current research is on track, the next step is to pile up manpower and waste time. The dependents designated by Vaska were captured one by one, their chromosomes were tested, and they were transformed. After the transformation was completed, their chromosomes were tested again. Compare it with Vaska's own chromosomes, compare it, and compare it with other dependents in the Silver Dragon's territory. Adjust the magic circle, adjust the magic circle, adjust the magic circle. I have no other choice. Look, I am alone now, there is only one mobile tower spirit, and there is only one computing center. I want to speed up, but I can't tell the difference. That is to say, we need manpower, a tower spirit and a computing center, right? The dragons understood the meaning of Gretel's words very well. Greet nodded quickly. That's right. When I was on Yangju Island before, it was my teacher, senior brother, and several elf elders who studied with me, and there were many elves who helped me. The elves helped build the mage tower, which allows them to contact Nevis at any time, and the world tree helps run the magic circle. As for the senior brother who is mainly busy with the Well of Eternity and the teacher who is mainly busy with nuclear magnetic resonance and the project of chasing demons in the world rift, there is no need to tell them in detail. In short, 2 human legends, and elven legends, the mage tower and the world tree, this lineup is enough to defeat everything. This was the first time for many dragons present to hear this detail. At this moment, there was inevitably a burst of whispers. Who is his teacher? Who is his senior brother? I heard Vaska say this. His teacher is the legendary mage of Nevis, Christian Descartes, who is known as the Lord of Thunder. Senior brother, I forgot who the senior brother is, he seems to be a newcomer too. Legend. Elf elder? I've been to the Elf Island before. Their custom seems to be that you have to reach legend to be called an elder. Are several legends studied with him? So what he means is that we also want to produce a few legends. Do we have enough legends? By the way, are there any legends who have finished their work recently and have been withdrawn from the front line? They don't want to sleep yet and are willing to come over and help. The turbulent mental energy suddenly calmed down. The giant dragons looked at each other, including the copper dragon with wheat-colored skin, and they all closed their mouths. The battle in Sky Dragon City has not been at its most intense recently. If you want to talk about free legends, you can still find some. However, you want those legendary dragons that were withdrawn from the battlefield to come directly to help a human instead of going back to the dragon's nest to sleep. Or is he a human magician who has not reached the level of a legend? Strictly speaking, he has just reached the level of an adult dragon? Everyone looked at each other and felt that they were not so proud. Including the legendary cloud dragon Leandra. If he asks himself, it is still possible to ask him to pay a reward and then wait for Gretel to do the work for him. Let him take root in Vaska's dragon's lair, help this human magician from beginning to end, and help him for a year or even a few years. No way. Wasker is even just an adult dragon. He hasn't even reached the point of gathering clouds, forming a magical cloud island, and building his own dragon's nest. This kind of dragon's nest on the ground, even on the top of a mountain, makes him feel uncomfortable, not to mention, This dragon's nest is filled with the aura of other dragons. Even if the energy attribute of their Yunlong is similar and the silver dragon has better compatibility, it won't work. Then, is there any way I can provide you with manpower? And provide a computing center? Can you go to the Magic Council and ask them to send someone to build a mage tower for you, and get a group of people over? Greet smiled sheepishly. Well, I don't know if strangers are welcome on Dragon Island, I don't know where to build a mage tower, and it's too far from Nevis. It probably won't be enough for me to make a round trip in a year. I'll go for you. The copper dragon Noctis, a giant dragon in his prime who was eagerly waiting for Gretel to help him treat his child, stood up without hesitation. Isn't it Nevis? Isn't it the Magic Council? He can go back and forth very quickly, and he can get things done in a month at most. Noctis took a step forward, the wind surging around him, and he couldn't wait to transform into his dragon form, spread his wings and fly away. The surrounding dragons all leaned back to avoid them. He suddenly stopped and faced the dragons. Let me tell you, let's put together what we can. At the very least, if Master Nordmark starts research, where will the mage tower be built? Is there enough energy supply? We need to discuss a plan. I won't leave here for the time being. Gretel quickly raised his hand. Noctis turned around and nodded solemnly to him. Of course, of course. To provide you with a research environment, we must first make you feel comfortable. So, we find a place for him to build a mage tower in Vasca's territory, or in Andre's territory, and then negotiate compensation with the other party? You go and talk about compensation. I'll go. You guys put together some things first so that I know what I'm talking about, so I can go and talk. When it comes to choosing a place, the best choice is of course to be in the territory of the legendary Silver Dragon. The place is large, the energy is abundant, and the choices are wide. The problem is, the price for the legendary Silver Dragon is too high. Noctis touches his collection and feels that he still needs to lure everyone into the trap. Gretel doesn't care about these things and can't control them. He just focused on doing research, taking records, and doing comparative experiments. Until Noctis flew to Nevis to discuss with the Magic Council. Little Greet ran to Dragon Island. Yes, he said before that he was going to meet his parents with the girl he liked. Counting the time, it has been a long time since he arrived at Dragon Island. This is not the key is that he has started another project. And it's the Dragon Clan begging him to do the project. The Dragon Clan begs us to provide him with conditions and increase his manpower. Who will be sent this time? Who will be sent to work with him? There are not many opportunities to harvest the dragon's wool, so you must seize it. Let's talk about it first. This time it's our turn in Black Crow Swamp. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1499. The visit of the Copper Dragon Noctis to Nevis did not cause much commotion in the Magic Council at first. After all, there are more than a dozen legendary mages in the council, and they have seen a lot of things in the world. There are more than 1 or 2 legendary mages who have landed on Dragon Island. There are also a number of high-level mages who have traveled to the New World and traveled all the way north to Dragon Island. Just a few years ago, the Golden Dragon Diamond paid a special visit to Nevis to bring news of the volcanic eruption to the Parliament. However, the news Noctis brought was shocking. Dragon Island invites human magicians to the island to help research the Dragon Clan? Even though this research is under the supervision of the Dragon Clan, all research results can only be used to benefit the Dragon Clan and cannot be taken away. All personnel must accept an oath, etc. However, that is also Dragon Island. That's also helping to study the Dragon Clan. In the past, when magicians came to Dragon Island, they either had a purpose to visit a certain friend, or they were ignored by the dragons and slipped through the cracks, just to broaden their horizons. Like this, accept the invitation openly and go over to study the Dragon Clan. This opportunity is once in a lifetime. For this invitation, to decide how many magicians the council should send, what level of magicians should be sent, and which school of magicians should be sent, the legendary magicians held a rare meeting. Not only were all the legendary mages on duty in Nevis present at this meeting, but even the legendary mages who were exploring, taking risks, and going on missions outside were notified and expressed interest in attending. The only exceptions are the two from Thunderhorn. The news coming from the elf secret realm is that His Excellency Crown of the Sun said that he is busy with a big project. If there is anything, you don't need to notify me, just have my teacher. The Lord of Thunder said that he is busy with a big project. You don't need to notify me if something happens, just have my apprentice. That's enough for you too. There are two masters and apprentices, each working on a big project, or two different projects. How fat you are eating this time. One has advanced to the legendary level, one has advanced to the second level of the legend, and the other has advanced to the third level of the legend. They haven't finished the project yet, even, looking at the way they are diving in, it seems like they haven't even finished half of it. In the end, Archmage Philby sat in the teacher's office, taking the place of her two legends with tears in her eyes. Teacher, senior brother, if there are any better projects, I also want to advance quickly. I also want to set foot in legend soon. Since he is not a legend, Archmage Philby can only sit in the teacher's office and watch the communication screen transferred from Mr. Mencruz, the Tower Spirit of Babel Tower, to ensure that the rights of his junior brother are not squeezed. Other than that, just keep your ears open, listen to the chatting of the judges in the conference room, listen to the gossips and complaints from the legends, and get into arguments yourself. We from the change department must go. Build the Mage Tower and connect the Mage Tower with Nevis. How can we be left out? The review committee member of the change department patted the table confidently. Besides, the transfiguration technique and the dragon transformation series have always been studied by the transformation department. We have accumulated a very rich amount of information. Only when we study dragons can we achieve the best results. But this time, the main topic is to transform the dragon family members and increase the dragon fertility rate and hatching rate. Let me see, there are still many topics, the jury member of the conjuration department answered slowly. The most important direction of these topics, or the most important need of the dragon clan, is the medical direction. Since it is the medical direction, it will definitely require our conjuration school to send manpower. That's not what you said, the review committee member of the necromancy school said sadly. Don't just look at the dragons, but also look at the small ones, look at the plague lord's thinking. In recent times, all the important research of the plague lord has been based on the exploration and modification of chromosomes. And the most studied chromosomes, who is it? He stood up vigorously. The black robe that had grown bigger around her body automatically fluttered in the windless air. It's us. It's us in Black Crow Swamp. It's us who have been studying the chromosome project, and it's us who have contributed the most results to the chromosome project that was linked to the elves before. The premise is that the dragon clan is willing to accept you to the island, the jury member of the conjuration school replied coldly. If it were me, I wouldn't want to anyway. Who knows if you guys will dig up dragon bones, revive dragon corpses, oh, and also, get some dragon flesh and blood, and clone a giant dragon. A discussion is a discussion, no swearing. The jury member from Black Crow Swamp was furious. He slapped the table, pulled out a skull from nowhere, raised his hand and threw it out. Next, ping pong ping pong ping pong. In the conference room, the routine of slamming the table, smashing water glasses, smashing pens, and smashing notebooks started again. Fortunately, all magic is prohibited in the conference room, and all quills are specially enchanted and can write many, many words. Otherwise, if the ink bottles smash against each other, even a high-level mage's body will be repeatedly washed away by magic elements, and it will not be so uncomfortable. It's not a curse, it's because the people from Black Crow Swamp want to go through, so they need to do a lot of extra communication with the Dragon Clan. The review committee member of the protection department had been listening quietly. After this round of mutual attacks was over, he spoke calmly. After all, Archmage Haynes' landing on Elf Island was the result of many communications and many guarantees. I think that although Black Crow Swamp wants to participate in this project, it will never be willing. A smile suddenly appeared on his lips. Cause trouble for your Plague Lord. In front of the light screen, Archmage Philby frowned. What does your Plague Lord mean? It's obviously our little Gretel. Lord of the Plague, Lord of the Plague, little Gretel has not even had an official title in Thunderhorn, yet you are calling him the Lord of the Plague. If things go on like this, by the time he reaches the legendary level, his title will become Plague Lord. People who don't know will think that there is an extra legend in the necromancy department. Black Crow Swamp will never cause trouble for little Greet. The light screen shook, and Immortal Aquinas spoke hoarsely. All magicians participating in the project can sign a magic contract and promise not to reveal any secrets of the Dragon Clan and never use any information obtained in the project to be detrimental to the Dragon Clan. In addition, we can bring all the instruments needed to study chromosomes directly, and there is no need to purchase additional ones. These words can be directly told to the Dragon Clan in the next round of communication. Isn't it just an instrument? We can also bring our own mobile tower spirit. We can also bring the energy pool and positioning equipment of the Mage Tower directly. We also have 10 microelectron microscopes. We also have energy measuring instruments. We can bring them with us, no problem at all. The light curtains shook one after another. Philby tried her best to hold back her smile. The manufacturing and debugging of microelectron microscopes, so far, the core technology is controlled by Thunderhorn. This time, Thunderhorn will definitely win. By the way, do we need to send Legend there? The light curtain rippled slightly. It was obvious that all the legends were thinking, and no one spoke. After a moment of stagnation, time and space barrier, Mr. Steiner said solemnly. Don't send it yet. When the research yields some results and the legendary power needs to be increased, then tell the dragons. We don't have enough legendary manpower here. If we need to send legends over, please ask them to also send legendary dragons to garrison on our behalf. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1500. So, the first batch of magicians coming over from Nevis is expected to be about 10. The copper dragon Noctis could hardly believe his ears and had to confirm again. 10 level 17 to 19 magicians who master 9-ring magic? Are there 2 half-step legends among them? Is the Magic Council so generous? Are you willing to send so many people? This research cannot be completed in 1, 2, 3, or 5 years. Based on the lifespan of the Dragon Clan, the needs of the Dragon Clan, and the difficulty of this subject, these magicians will be delayed on Dragon Island for 10, 20, 30, or 50 years. Even if a few of them are only tasked with building and debugging the Mage Tower so that the Mage Tower can communicate with Nevis normally, and they are about to leave after finishing their work, 7 or 8 of them must be left behind. The 10 or so 9-ring magicians are still active on the front line of research, rather than those who have given up hope of advancement and are just hanging around waiting to die. This group of people has been transferred to the Magic Council, and a batch of ready-made research projects have to be delayed no matter what. What's the matter? The Council has been under a lot of pressure recently. Do you want to ask Long Island to drag them into the water? Or has the Glory Holy See gone too far recently? Those guys are really annoying. I heard from the elders of the family that when they started to cause trouble, the whole continent was in a smog, and even dragons like them moved far away. Yes, 10 high-level mages lead the team. The power level of the Prime Year Dragons is about the same as that of the 9-ring mages. The person who came to negotiate was also a half-step legend, Archmage Bertz of Black Crow Swamp. Including me. Of course, 2 of them are here to build the Mage Tower. They will go back after building it. Leader. Noctis didn't pay much attention to the smell of the necromancer. Copper dragons like dry, rocky mountains and hills, like to build nests in narrow caves, and like to eat all kinds of poisonous creatures. The smell of the necromancer is not much different from his food, so it doesn't matter to him. Disgusting. However, the word team leader has a rich meaning. 10 high-level mage leaders mean that the entire research team is definitely more than 10 mages. 20. 50. Even more? Hey, how can a dozen or so people be enough for such a complicated project? Archmage Bertz twitched his withered cheeks, trying to raise something that could be called a smile. Besides, when you reach the level of a high-level mage, everyone is used to leading a team, with a group of disciples and disciples below helping to run errands. Each high-level mage brings an assistant, and a small team of 10 people cannot be less. So many people. The copper dragon Noctis frowned. A high-level mage leads 10 people, 10 high-level mage, the whole team is 100 people. I won't help them on the way, he replied warily. If the council only sent 1 or 2 magicians, he would not mind taking them for a ride with his own power, such as flying across the ocean, allowing them to rest occasionally on the platform where he condensed. If the council sends as many as 10 magicians, such as what he was told just now, then he will only fly in front to lead the way. Unless he encounters a particularly big danger, such as a deadly storm or something, whether these magicians live or die has nothing to do with him. By the way, 10 high-level mages, walking in a group on Dragon Island, should be able to come out safely as long as they don't rush too recklessly and go into the legendary dragon's lair to cause trouble. But, 100? Sorry, you can figure it out yourself. The strong and the weak, the old and the young, different schools of thought, may have opinions or hatred towards each other. It's such a mess, anything could happen, who's going to care about you? Of course, Archmage Bertz nodded repeatedly, the smile on his face remaining unchanged. Don't worry, we can take care of ourselves. All you need to do is lead the way for us and prove to the dragons along the way that we are here at the invitation of the dragons. It's not difficult. Noctis, the copper dragon, bent his right palm and put his finger knuckles under his chin, and said in deep thought. Turning his eyes, he suddenly stared at the other party alertly. Wait a minute, if 10, even 8 high-level mages come to work, do they have to build 8 mage towers? And there are 8 high-level mage towers. The magic tower's power draw is also quite powerful. 8 high-level mage towers, even if they are distributed in the territory of a legendary dragon clan, will drain a lot of energy from the territory. That energy is enough to drain a magic crystal mine, or, who knows, enough to hatch a nest of dragon eggs? Andre would not be willing to lose this energy in vain. In the end, it was the dragons who asked for the help of the Nordmark mage. Everyone shared a share and used their own treasures to compensate. Thinking about it, he might, maybe, probably lose as much treasure as half a bed. No way. I don't know how many mage towers we need to build. The council has discussed the issue of mage towers before and has already made plans. So Archmage Bertz naturally showed his hands. But no matter what, we are here to assist Master Nordmark in his research, and we must focus on his needs. According to my estimation, the closer we are to each other, the better. We shouldn't have 1 mage tower per person. In fact, the biggest possibility is to build a large mage tower, like the Babel Tower, or like the 8 auxiliary towers next to the Babel Tower. Then everyone shares energy and computing power to maximize research efficiency. As for whether the medical branch of the conjuration system can share the energy pool with necromancy magic, that is another question. When you get to the place, you can slowly solve it. Then, okay. The copper dragon Noctis breathed a sigh of relief. The more magicians come, the faster the research progress will be, the fewer magician towers are built, the less rewards they will pay. Of course, it would be best if the progress is rapid and all the needs can be met within a year, and they only need to spend a few gold coins. By the way, with so many magicians here, do the Dragon Clan and the Parliament need to form an alliance? The copper dragon Noctis asked, reaching into his pocket and holding a roll of animal skin. The matter of inviting magicians to participate in research has been discussed in Sky Dragon City, and several legendary dragons who were interested in asking reached a unanimous opinion. No alliance, or in other words, no alliance for the time being until a certain number of legendary magicians intervene. As for one or two legendary magicians, or several high-level mages visiting Dragon Island. Please, this is just an accident. Who doesn't know that magicians are always running around the world, and occasionally a few come to Dragon Island? Is that a thing? In the confrontation between Nevis and the Glory Holy See, the Dragon Clan does not pay attention, does not interfere, and does not take sides. If there are dragons participating in their own name, the Dragon Clan will not interfere, but they will not form an alliance in the name of the clan. Are you kidding me? They are stationed in Sky Dragon City, sealing the rifts in the world, and dragging resources in from outside the world. They are already very busy. Unless the conflict between human beings destroys the entire world, the Dragon Clan will not care. If you have this time, why not go back to your own dragon's nest and have a good sleep with your treasure on your pillow? If the Parliament really demands an alliance, then this extremely loose contract on the animal skin is the ultimate answer to them. Secretly vigilant, he heard a very satisfactory answer. Archmage Bertz leaned back, crossed his hands in front of him, and spoke in a relaxed tone. An alliance? Of course not an alliance. A few high-level mages went to Dragon Island to support another high-level mage's research. Why should they rise to the level of alliance? At most, please ask all the dragons to take care of the visitor. Especially this time, Master Nordmark's disciples will definitely send one or two over. Please look at them differently and don't let the monsters in the territory eat them. What? A disciple of Master Nordmark? That human magician's disciple? Okay. We will definitely protect his disciples. By the way, what is the level of his disciples now? In your terms, level 15? Level 13? It can't be as low as level 11, right? You think they are too strong? No, actually, you think the advancement process of Nordmark Mage is too slow. In fact, Gretel's two disciples, Leon Carlos, who runs the hospital for him, and Anavia, who runs the research institute and studies antibiotics for him, are already quite talented. Not only are their talents good, they have also been trained with great efforts after Gretel left Nevis and traveled. Leon Carlos was taken under the tutelage of Archmage Carlyle, who led Gretel into the Thunderhorn, and was mentored by his youngest disciple, Aurora, Gretel's follower. Anivia was first guided by the elders of the deistic church in the Nevis area. After Elder Tapros came to participate in the project, the old man pulled Anivia to his side and taught him personally. There is no other way. Gretel has brought too many benefits to the Magic Council and the natural gods. If he does not give back a little to his disciples, the bosses will feel guilty. It has the guidance of famous teachers, a large amount of resources that have been spared no effort, and the research direction left by Greet. It is guaranteed to be the most cutting-edge topic in the world, and there is a steady stream of feedback from the world. Under such conditions, even a pig can be forcibly fed into a demon pig. What's more, the two disciples Gretel likes are diligent, hard-working, and indeed have some talents. But no matter how hard he works and his talent, he can't keep up with Gretel, a cheater. The two of them have been moving up one level every 2 years and 3 years. At this time, Anivia is already a level 9 natural priest. Leon Carlos has to concentrate on hospital management, which is a little slower. At any rate, he is still level 8. Level Mage. This speed of advancement would be considered astonishing for a disciple of another high-level mage, and the teacher could hardly stop laughing. However, compared with Gretel's advancement speed. What? Level 9? Level 8? So slow. Oh, he is a disciple after all, you can't expect him to be on par with the teacher. Archmage Bert sighed with regret. It's a pity that Leon Carlos is a necromancer in name, but he has been guided by Thunderhorn all these years. They took action too slowly. Thunderhorn is acting too domineering. If Leon Carlos had been with Gretel, he might still be a pure necromancer. I just hate that Gretel ran too fast and ran too far. Black Crow Swamp had the intention to send Leon Carlos to Gretel, but he couldn't send him there at first because the hospital needed someone to take care of him, so he sent him away and no one could take over. Later, Leon selected among his junior brothers and trained the hospital manager number 2. When he was able to free his hands, Gretel had left the Eagle Country and plunged into the Elf Forest. Within 2 years, I ran from the Elf Forest to Yangju Island. Within a few years of staying on Yangju Island, I headed north to Dragon Island. At such a speed, Black Crow Swamp couldn't catch up in time. If you send someone there, most of your time will be spent on the road, so why bother? Now, Gretel has temporarily settled down on Dragon Island. It seems that this project will not be completed in 1 or 2 years. Just in time, he sent his disciple over for a ride and received guidance from the teacher. He should be able to grow into a very powerful necromancer, right? The copper dragon Noctis grunted a few times and reluctantly accepted this explanation. Disciples are just disciples. Fortunately, there are only 2 disciples. Levels 8 and 9 are pretty good, almost the same as the guards outside his dragon lair. By the way, take away 10 high-level mages in one go. Is it okay for you here? He belatedly remembered that he should occasionally show concern for the other party. Faced with this problem, the necromancer showed a sincerely happy, or rather gloating smile. No problem. The other side has been in a lot of trouble lately, and I can't even take care of myself. Under the rule of the glorious Holy See, it has been going downhill in recent years. Needless to mention the Storm Islands, yellow fever broke out one after another, and never stopped, and the income of that place was reduced a lot. The kingdom of the sun was even more miserable. After the sun god Virako took a breath, he successively promoted several high-level priests who were close to the legendary level. In one fell swoop, the border of the kingdom was pushed thousands of miles northward, reaching half of the original territory of the Glory Holy See. The past legend of the Holy See could only barely hold on to the governor's palace and the Silver Mountain, and was unable to cope with the encroachment of the Sun Kingdom. The latest news is that the Pope who took office a few years ago prayed devoutly to the Lord of Glory for 7 consecutive days and nights, trying to find a way to change the situation. Then, perhaps receiving an oracle, he sent a group of masters to cross the ocean and enter the great forest in the southern part of the New World. This is not what we instigated. When this information was obtained, it was said that the immortal Lord laughed wildly in the Tower of Sleeplessness for 3 days and 3 nights. The skulls laughed so hard that they rolled from the top of the tower to the bottom. How many legends are there in the elf secret realm now? A conservative estimate of 3, and their eldest prince. Of course, our newly promoted Lord Crown of the Sun is also there, debugging the well of eternity. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1501. How many batches of those guys with bright lights have come? 3 batches, Your Highness Elder Theodora sighed softly. He knew that His Highness the Prince asked this question not because he couldn't remember how many groups of intruders came here to spy, but because he was already a little irritated. If you say you want to come, just come openly. The elves do not reject humans. As long as they come with good intentions and abide by the rules, the elves are willing to become friends with visitors. However, first they sneaked in secretly, then they spied in various ways, and then they bribed, spied, lured with magic, and tortured the local indigenous people. And he refuses to change despite repeated admonitions. After the first and second batch of infiltrators were swallowed up by the forest, they sent a third batch. The more people you have, the more power you have, and the deeper you dive. This time, I almost touched the edge of the elven secret realm. If the natives and monsters hadn't been vigilant enough, if the elves hadn't set up layers of magic alarms nearby, if the elders hadn't been slacking off and patrolling with the secret realm guards continuously, they might actually get in. I think we can't let it go any longer. Prince Anio clenched his fist hard. The elf, who has just grown from a boy to a young man, has lost all his youthfulness and is now filled with depression and solemnity. Looking at it, one can't help but think that although he has been sealed in the ancient tree for hundreds of years, he has been assisting the queen in handling affairs, and his spiritual power has grown to legendary levels. He turned around and looked around, and his eyes quickly fell on a mysterious magic rune in the distance. There, led by the legend of Balba, a group of elves are busy debugging the Well of Eternity again. For the first batch and the second batch, we were buried quietly in the forest, not wanting to make things big. Then the third batch came. I think it's time to give them a warning. Actually, burying people in the forest is equivalent to pointing them in the direction Elder Theodora's side. Several groups of people were sent out at the same time, more than a dozen groups of people. All the people from other directions came back safely, or at least one or two people came back safely. They were all wiped out along the way, and no one came back. Not even a single message could be spread. It was completely wiped out once, twice, and the third time. How could anyone know there was a problem here? And after confirming that there is a problem in this place, isn't it easy to recruit enough experts? There are many experts in the glorious Holy See, but due to restrictions on their beliefs, most of them stay in the old continent. There are not many legends who are willing to travel across the ocean to preside over the affairs of the viceroyalty. However, if it is confirmed that there is a big secret here, a big secret of high enough value, a big secret that can suddenly resurrect a demigod who is so weak that he is about to die, and kill several legends in one breath. The glorious Holy See called out 5, 6, or 7 or 8 legends in one go, along with 20 or 30 half-step legends, rushed to the elven secret realm, and left immediately after completing a mission. That was not impossible. Perhaps we should talk to His Excellency the Crown of the Sun, he muttered to persuade the prince. Whether the debugging progress of the Well of Eternity can be completed within 3 months, half a year, or 1 year will directly affect our decision-making. If it can be completed within 3 months and connected to the mysterious lock, you can be more radical. With the Well of Eternity powering the mystery lock, one half-step legend can control 2 or 3 legends outside. There are 3 legends, plus His Royal Highness the Prince, controlling the secret lock in the middle. Even if 10 legends join forces to attack, he is confident of blocking it. No matter how few enemies there are, it wouldn't be strange to divide, surround, kill them all, and leave them all in the secret realm. The secret passed down by the elves for thousands of years. Hundreds of legends have modified it, added or deleted it, and added a variety of different magics. How can such a powerful weapon be taken lightly? Well, let's talk about it first. Prince Anio pondered for a moment and slowly exhaled. I guess they won't send the next group of people over right away. The longer the time goes on, the greater the margin we have to deal with it. After all, our purpose is not to kill people. In the Mage Tower near the Well of Eternity, Burbo is sitting in front of the tower spirit, his eyes seeming to be closed. Various numbers, symbols, and magic runes surround him, flying quickly, like a waterfall. Slide down. Obviously, the newly built Well of Eternity also involved a lot of calculation work, so that even if Baebo set foot in the legend, he would have to rely on the power of the tower spirit to cope with such a large amount of calculations. During the calculation process, the wizard tower is closed and all defenses are turned on. Although there is an invisible servant standing outside, it is only equivalent to a mailbox. The message has been received. I don't know when it will be sent in. Prince Anio waited patiently for a long time before the wizard tower opened and Baebo strolled out. Seeing them, smiled and said, "I had good luck today and the progress is very fast. It is estimated that in 2 or 3 days, the first phase plan will be finalized. What's the matter?" After listening to the eldest prince's explanation of what had happened, he did not immediately give an answer as to when the Well of Eternity would be repaired. After thinking for a while, I came up with another plan. Otherwise, we'll trick these guys. How to say? Don't they want ore? These ores have many benefits, but more disadvantages. The main reason is that the threshold for use is too high. In this way, we release some wrong information and let them fall directly into the pit. Prince Anio frowned in thought. Birbo had already waved his hand, and the light and shadow around him spread out, surrounding him with a moving screen that towered over the sky. You see, if you come into close contact with these ores without any precautions, you will experience various symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, hair loss, diarrhea, rashes, etc. within a period of time, and in the most serious cases, you will die within a short period of time. If they are purified in large quantities, the purified people will be more likely to get sick and die. And when a large amount of high purity metal is piled together, as long as it reaches a not too large amount. He clasped his hands together and spread them outwards. Prince Anio raised his eyebrows. You want them to blow themselves up? We just need to leak a little bit of the paper. Birbo smiled a little slyly, not at all as bold and enthusiastic as Crown of the Sun should be. Papers like this are published secretly and will not be made public. Moreover, even if they are published secretly, the core calculation formulas and calculation data will not be written in the paper. We just need to do some tricks with the intelligence, for example, stack it together to increase the amount of natural explosion by 100 times, 1,000 times, or 10,000 times, and then let the spies from the glorious Holy See get it. Then doesn't this mean that the ore is useful? Prince Anio frowned slightly. In this case, wouldn't they want to invade the territory with a large army and insist on occupying this place? Just get some ore and throw it outside. Birbo spread his hands indifferently. The ores you have here are all rich ores, and there are many things that can be extracted. Find an earth elemental, dig out a little, and throw it far away, or find a particularly dangerous place to bury it, and let them dig it out. Prince Anio thought for a moment, seeing how the people of the Holy See were digging hard in the mountains and under the cliffs of canyons. He had to sigh. When it comes to deceiving people, humans are the ones who can deceive people. Even an evocation magician who is known for being straightforward and waiting with fireballs if he doesn't agree with someone can still bear it if he has his own tricks. He took a deep breath and looked directly at Baebo. So, the job of leaking papers. I'll do it. I'll contact Nevis. What about the ore? The ore will wait a moment and let Nevis come up with a detailed plan. We will do it step by step according to the time points. What about the intruders? Let's take them around in a circle first. The forest is still very big. Let's go around a few more times and wait until the news from me comes back. Trick them and buy some time. From the old world to the new world, 2 round trips took at least half a year. If you are very lucky, you can really make them boom. The time gained is not 1 or 2 years, but 3 or 4 years. It would be best if it exploded in the Holy City of Glory. One mushroom egg would blow up half of the city, severely damaging the vitality of the Holy Sea of Glory and not being able to recover for decades. The news of Baebo spread from the Elf secret realm to the Sun Kingdom, and then relayed from the Sun Kingdom to Nevis. In just 1 week, feedback from Nevis came back quickly. Pit. Pit pit pit. Send back the paper with the keynotes changed and removed. Next, we will do the operation here, and we must make sure to trick the glorious Holy See. With Nevis controlling the rhythm, the elves kept their heads hidden and commanded the monsters, patiently teasing the people from the Holy See in circles for 2 months. From the east coast to the west coast, from the edge of the Storm Islands to the edge of the southern prairie. After waiting for Nevis to properly leak the paper, the exploration team sent by the Holy See found a precious ore in the canyon deep in the Black Continent. There is an energy response. Divinity verification is consistent. This place is a bit troublesome. No, this place is quite troublesome. It came from the collapse of the cliff. There is only a small amount of ore in the canyon, and the main veins are on the cliff, not at the top, but in the middle. Mining. Mining is expensive. Mining here, although tiring, is better than mining from the other side of the wilderness. Destroy the monsters. Search for the natives. The Black Continent is our own territory and we cannot mine it. Where is your devotion to the Lord of Glory? High in the distant sky, a goshawk circled several times, flapped its wings, and flew away. Finding this place would cost him his life. It has to be far away, it has to be dangerous, it has to torture people, it has to be difficult for them to get, and there really is no important ore for thousands of miles around. Even if he is an elf legend and is born with natural affinity, it is not that easy. Dig, you can dig. We are waiting for the boom. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1502. Chapter 1497, When will the Glory Holy See be able to blow up? Platinum Tower Leaders Update 3. Every other line is like a mountain. Magic is a profound and difficult subject. When it comes to the subject of using ores to cast spells or stacking them to create explosions, it is even more difficult and difficult. Even if you successfully steal the paper, it is not easy to interpret it. For example, a paper written by Oppenheimer was stolen by an agent, and it took Heisenberg to understand it. If it were Ziazi who read it himself, even if he was given the complete paper, he would not know what the formulas on the paper were saying. To understand the conclusion clearly, the paper must be written concisely and concisely enough that even a layman can understand it. The glorious Holy See is currently encountering this problem. Ore, explosion, and papers related to ore explosion, that is the top priority of the Holy See at the moment, and they must steal it at all costs. 3 lines were folded, all of which were buried deeply and kept for more than 10 years. It was not easy to steal the paper. After traveling thousands of miles to the Glory Holy See, the magician raised by the Inquisition flipped through the paper and was dumbfounded. What the hell is this writing about? What on earth is this thing talking about? The chief referee personally came out and took a copy of the paper and read it from beginning to end, and then from end to end. Half of the words in this are completely unknown. Of course I haven't seen it. Discussions related to atomic energy, from molecules, to atoms, to protons, neutrons, electrons, to various rays, are all newly coined words. Even if these words are all pieced together and changed from the original words, if you can even figure out the meaning by guessing, you still have to read a dozen papers and memorize the previous words. When I write a new article, all of a sudden, I can guess the meaning of the first word, and I can also understand the second word. By the 7th and 8th words, when twisted together, they immediately became a mass of paste. As for formulas, well, don't mention them. Is this conclusion correct? His finely trimmed, perfectly curved nails made a shallow mark on the parchment. Usually, when this seal is pinched, it means promotion, transfer, demotion or punishment, life and death for a person, a family, a village or a township, uprooting one's hometown, or a river of blood. However, at this moment, one mark after another was pinched into a string, but it was of no use. The parchment lay quietly on the table, neither catching fire nor smoking. It's just an ordinary piece of parchment. If you crush it or tear it, it won't even squeak to tell you what conspiracy is inside. There are theories, but they are not exact, there are formulas, but they are not detailed. If Greet got this paper, he would probably tie his brows into 18 knots, sigh and complain. It only says E equals mc in front of it, and it will immediately jump to the critical mass of the radioactive element. There is no such jump. I have to do the process myself? Are you kidding? The famous mass energy equation is basically known to anyone who has attended high school. Even if they have not attended high school and have completed the 9-year compulsory education, a large number of people have heard of it. However, how to directly derive the critical mass of uranium-235 based on the mass energy equation? Pure high school students who have not taken a series of courses such as advanced mathematics, college physics, nuclear physics, etc., come 10,000, and lose 10,000, come 1 million, I am afraid they will lose 1 million. In his previous life, the famous Heisenberg was able to miscalculate the critical mass, which was 100 times larger. These guys from the glorious Holy See have no theory or practice. They have the papers they finally stole back and have the success pearls of sun god Virakaka in front of them. They know that this road is feasible, so why not? Just keep your head down and run forward. Recently, there have indeed been much fewer spies coming to the forest to investigate. Prince Anio breathed a sigh of relief, his face relaxed. The legend of Balba did a great job of diverting trouble to the east. The secret realm of Elves only produced a batch of ore. There are endless veins of ore in this huge secret realm. Digging a small amount is not a problem at all, and it doesn't hurt at all. From the New World, he transported it to the Black Continent, summoned an Earth Element Lord and buried it deeply, then threw a few pieces out and threw them on the edge of the stream where visitors from the Holy See might find them. This move, coupled with the leaked half-truth and half-false papers, drove the people of the glory Holy See far away, to another continent in one breath. That's good, that's good. As long as they get the ore, they won't bother them for the time being. I just don't know how long we have to wait until there's a bang over there. Can't wait for now. The glorious Holy See is still working on the paper desperately. The paper is not long, adheres to the usual parliamentary style, and the principles are very clear. Purify the ore, purify it again, until only the element that can emit rays is left. The purified product can be used as a casting material. Use the spell model to stimulate its energy, and with one boom, a big fireball can explode, the power of which is equivalent to a full-strength strike of the legendary primary level. How much casting material is used? The more, the better, the more powerful. Spell model? Sorry, no, things like spell models always have to be exchanged separately and cannot be written in the paper. Moreover, some special secret spells can only be redeemed in a certain school, or only in a certain organization of a certain school, or can only be passed down to disciples by teachers. Anyone want to touch it? Dream. I want to know that the self-created spell of a half-step legend to advance to the legend must be the secret among the secrets. To be able to spread in the thunder horn within 100 years is already considered an unusually generous legend. It is probably impossible to exchange it for the entire evocation faction. The principle is clear, it is to stimulate the energy inside faced with the chief referee's inquiry, or in other words, the accusation. The magician in the black prison felt sweat on his forehead. Anyway, there are so many spell models to stimulate energy, and there are so many magical spells. Let's try them one by one and modify them one by one. There are indeed many spell models, but it is a pity that none of them can be used for the time being. It takes time to dig out ore from the Black Continent. It also takes time to transport the ore back thousands of miles after it is dug out, and it takes even more time to purify it after it is transported back. Not to mention that the cliff is deep in the Black Continent. Just to transport things out, you have to walk thousands of miles. The monsters, indigenous people, and various monster insects along the way have no time to rest. Yellow fever alone would sicken half the people on the road. Prince Anio was a little regretful, so he had to suppress his thoughts and work hard to build the secret realm of elves. The construction of the Well of Eternity is about to reach the final step. If it were just to build a Well of Eternity, with Baebo's ability, it would have been completed long ago. But he also had some selfish motives, and wanted to find out the secret of the Well of Eternity so that he could take it back with him in the future. Nevis is only so big, and there are only so many places suitable for building a mage tower. There is one teacher and one hymn. Little Gretel is also destined to be a legend in the future. There are 3 legends in Thunderhorn alone. There are more and more legends, and the energy supply of the Igor Peak mystery lock is insufficient, and problems will occur sooner or later. If you could bring a batch of ore back to power the mage tower, wouldn't it mean that you would no longer be short of energy wherever you go? It happened that the elves asked him to help build the Well of Eternity. While helping and debugging, he learned while building. After learning, we have established a good relationship. Let's get a batch of ore back and build a Well of Eternity ourselves. Tisk, I wonder how little Gretel's progress is now. With the speed at which he is advancing, he might become a legend in 5 or 10 years. As a senior brother, you have to prepare the mage tower for him. Greet's progress is really not as fast as the elder brother guessed. Chromosome research is a big project. The research on dragon chromosomes is a big project that is at least dozens of times larger than that of humans. It is really not that easy to produce results in a short period of time. Manpower. He needs help. Finally, some results were achieved, and some dragon clans were persuaded to invite more magicians to the island to participate in research. But he had no idea how many people he could invite and how many resources the dragon clan was willing to provide. Gretel. Senior sister. The communication device in the mage tower rang. Greet picked up the conversation and almost jumped up. What, you want to come here in person? Yes, I'll come here in person. Philby smiled lightly on the other end of the communication. To study chromosomes, we cannot do without microelectron microscopy, let alone the iteration of microelectron microscopy. What Greet is currently using is the first-generation microscope, which is large, consumes a lot of energy, and has slow calculation speed. In the past few years, the microscope has advanced to the 3rd generation, and every improvement has her hard work in it. And now, Gretel wants to conduct large-scale research on dragons. How can he do without her? Come here, you must come here. The teacher went to Yangju Island and was promoted from Legendary Level 2 to Legendary Level 3. The eldest brother went to the Kingdom of the Sun, and then to the Island of Eternal Judgment, and then embarked on the legend. Now it's her turn, Gretel's project, their Thunderhorn project. Who can stop her from coming? Nobody. Then, senior sister, bring a few people here. What do you want me to prepare for you? Greet was overjoyed. A strong person like senior sister Philby could manipulate electron currents and microelectron microscopes with her hands several years ago. Over the years, she didn't even dare to think how far her abilities had progressed. Moreover, now that senior sister Philby is here, someone will be managing the entire laboratory. It's okay for him to be alone. If there is a group of dragons or a group of archmages, it is better for the senior sister to take care of it for him than for him to be a level 15 magician. You don't have to worry about anything. We will negotiate with the Dragon Clan wherever and whenever we need the energy. Senior sister Philby declined without thinking. On the other hand, your two disciples, think carefully about how to arrange study plans for them. One has reached level 8 and the other has reached level 9. If I don't care about you anymore, I won't kiss you anymore. These two disciples have been raised in vain. What? Thanks to @book friend 202303061. For the 4908 Reading points. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1503. Gretel felt a little guilty when her senior sister mentioned, "You still have two disciples." To be honest, these two disciples of his are basically free range. Carlos also brought more, teaching him anatomy, medical skills, and hospital management. Taking him with me, from just watching, to being his assistant, to letting him manage some trivial matters in the hospital, to entrusting almost the entire hospital to him. It can be said that even if he lets go and doesn't care about anything, he will be able to live and work based on his achievements in treatment and hospital management. As for Anavia, a topic, or a direction for the topic, is given, sufficient resources are given, and then, there is nothing more. Not to mention opening book lists, assigning homework, correcting directions, answering questions, helping to publish papers, etc. He didn't even know the topics of several papers written by Anvia. As for natural magic, what a joke. If one does not take into account the suppression of magical power brought by level, Anivia can defeat him in every aspect such as communication with animals, plant affinity, transformation, etc. It can be said that every aspect of traditional natural magic can beat him. So what have I, the nominal teacher, been doing all these years? It's okay for Lin, after all, I traveled all the way to the New World to rescue him from the Snake Woman, which is considered to have fulfilled my obligation to my followers. To Aurora and Mr. Norwood, no matter what, I provided a mage tower and sufficient resources. However, it is different for students and followers. It would be great if students could not be freed of resources. So, when Carlos and Anavia come, what homework should I give them, what content should I teach them, and what research direction should I point out? By the way, in my impression, Leon Carlos is still a necromancer. I also made an agreement with Black Crow Swamp to teach a high-level necromancer. When the time comes, I will give the dark gold skeleton given by the immortal. Pass it to him. Help. I urgently need a necromancer to teach me. I urgently need a high-level natural priest to teach on my behalf. I, really, don't understand anything. With a worried heart, Greet waited until senior sister Philby and her party landed on the ground behind the copper dragon Noctis. The airship opened and as soon as people started to disembark, his eyes widened. Senior sister. Elder Wood. Elder Knox. Teacher. Archmage Philby's pretty face twisted slightly. Hold it in, she thought, trying to hold it in. Little Gretel is a magician, but he is also a nature priest. Before he was accepted by his teacher, he had already worshipped a natural priest as his teacher. When he became a teacher, he was even just an apprentice, and he had just crossed the threshold of a transcendent. This kind of kindness cannot be forgotten. If little Greet forgets his teacher, then he is not a person who can be trusted or entrusted to him. Thunderhorn should also be more considerate of him. No, I still can't bear it. When she heard Gretel call teacher, she couldn't help but turn her head and look to see if the Lord of Thunder was coming. That kind of numbness from the top of the head to the spine, a little frightening feeling, how can anyone who has never experienced it understand it? The dark blue dress automatically lifted up slightly without any wind, and electric sparks crackled at the edges. Archmage Philby turned her face and smiled at Gretel. Gretel smiled back, quickly passed by her, and went straight to her. Teacher. I haven't seen you for a long time. He grabbed Elder Irwin and smiled happily. I haven't seen her in more than 10 years since I went back to treat little Avril. When I saw it today, the teacher's white hair looked like he had lost most of his hair, and he was tougher and brighter. He looked at him with a smile and full of love. Teacher, you have advanced. That's great. It's really great. Since coming to this world, most of the people I know are either young people or immortals. Aging and death seemed very, very far away from him, and the distant ones didn't seem to exist. Only Elder Irwin was already a white-haired old man when we first met him. As more than 10 years passed, he would only be one step closer to death. Even with the nourishment of the power of nature, I am getting closer and closer to losing him. Gretel originally thought that after finishing his work on Dragon Island this time and returning to Nevis, he would go back to his hometown anyway and meet Elder Irwin. Otherwise, no matter how often he corresponds, no matter how much he asks people to send resources back, no matter how much he sees the elders reply saying that they are very good, always very good, and indeed very good, he will feel a little uneasy. Without Elder Irwin, it would have been a problem for him to settle down and live in this world. The elders do not despise him for being stupid, nor do they despise him for having problems communicating with nature. They give him guidance and protect him in every possible way. In this world, the elder was the first person to treat him like a father, or in other words, like a grandfather. Yes, I have advanced. Elder Irwin smiled slightly. He advanced to the 10th level in the past few years and was sent to Nevis by the order of the God of Nature, where he was directly taught by the elf legend. Under the personal guidance of the legendary powerhouse and with the sect's generous resources, he advanced to level 11 at the end of last year. Not everyone has such an opportunity, not even many young people in the sect who are more talented than him. He wanted to refuse, but the legendary master of the order, Elder Tapros, told him directly. Don't worry about resources. Little Gretel sent a batch directly, which is enough to turn one person into a legend. You are among them. As for the guidance, we actually just told each other about you and little Gretel. It's just a relationship. Alas, this little guy. Elder Irwin was both amused and felt warm in his heart. After all, he taught little Greet for only a few years, but he really couldn't teach him much. But this little guy kept thinking of him, remembering him, and repaying him with much more than what he gave. Little Gretel, thank you. It will be great if you advance. It's really great. Gretel grabbed his hand and repeated it again. The elder has a head full of white hair, half of which has turned black. The skin on his face is firmer, and even the age spots have almost disappeared. When standing in front of him, the life energy was much stronger, vigorous, surging and rising. If Elder Irwin could live for at least 20 years when he said goodbye in Heartland City, then after this round of advancement, living for another 50 years is definitely not a problem. Teacher, I really didn't expect you to come. Gretel circled around Elder Irwin, and then circled around again. Suddenly his eyes lit up, and he pulled Anavia out of the crowd and pushed her in front of the elder. Elder, this is my disciple, Anavia. From the direction of the natural priest. Teacher, it's great that you're here. I really don't know how to teach disciples, so it's great to have you here. Elder Irwin's smile stiffened. Elder Wood, who is based in Nevis, and Elder Knox, who is based in the royal capital, also cracked their smiles. The corner of Anavia's mouth twitched, and she could hardly keep her expression. Sir. Tutor. Although over the years, you have never taught me anything except giving me a lesson at the beginning and giving me a topic. But don't openly show the attitude of I don't know how to teach. Please come and teach me. Can we at least talk about it slowly in private? Why don't you say yes in front of a group of magicians? Oh, there are dragons at the scene. Can we not be embarrassed in front of the dragons? You have grown up, and your current level is much higher than mine. After a moment of silence, Elder Irwin quickly pulled back his thoughts. You should also learn to teach your disciples. If you don't understand something, you can discuss it with the teacher, but you can't always rely on the teacher. You should teach your own disciples, okay? All right. Gretel replied with a bit of annoyance. If it's medical skills, he still has the confidence to teach them. Natural magic is really not very good. Decided. Teach Anavia all the healing spells she has developed from Nevis to the New World from beginning to end. Don't talk about it until you learn it. If you can't learn it, just learn it slowly and leave him time to think about what to teach. After greeting Elder Irwin, Greet came back to his senses and greeted Elder Wood, Elder Knox, and others. This time they set out for Dragon Island. The god of nature religion relied on their relationship with Gretel to grab 10 spots. Of course, the valid reason is, things related to growth and development require natural magic, and it will be more convenient with us. After saying hello, Senior Sister Philby had already walked to her side and waved to call out Leon Carlos from the crowd. Gretel, 2 of your disciples are here, don't just focus on one. Leon is here, your senior brother Carlisle has been teaching. Then I'll go back and thank my senior brother. Gretel breathed a sigh of relief. Senior sister, during this period, will you give more advice to Leon? There is an exclusive magic of the necromancy school. I don't know it. How can I ask him to ask the magician of Black Crow Swamp for advice? Okay. Need not. 3 voices sounded at the same time. While Archmage Philby agreed, the 2 archmages of Black Crow Swamp blurted out at the same time. We can teach him. Leon is still one of ours. Hey, if you don't bring me with you, you'll start robbing people now, right? Gretel opened his mouth and decided not to get involved in the fight over people. Whether it's a necromancer or an evocation mage, in short, Leon is my disciple, and for the time being, it's me who decides what he learns. He expressed his hard work to the Copper Dragon Noctis, and greeted several high-level mages who led the team one by one. Almost immediately, Archmage Mansfield of the School of Change asked urgently. Mage Nordmark, where do you want to build your mage tower? Build one or several? Make a decision early and we can start construction early. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1504. The large group of people landed, and the mage tower was built vigorously. Gretel had already repeatedly communicated with his future father-in-law and a group of dragons in need about how to build the mage tower. My brother-in-law's territory cannot afford so many magicians. Only the territory of the legendary Silver Dragon has such abundant energy. However, even the legendary Silver Dragon does not want 8 mage towers to appear in his territory at once. What's going on? There are 2 towers per tower, built far away from each other. If you look at them from the top of the cliff and you can't see them with the naked eye, you just pretend they don't exist. The presence of the 8 mage towers is too strong. Once so many mage towers are built, is this territory my territory or the territory of the Magic Council? As a result, a lot of people came from the evocation system, the necromancy system, the transformation system, and the conjuration system. At this time, they could only share 1 mage tower. Fortunately, the quantity is limited and the scale can be made larger. Guide the magic crystal veins and the energy pool, and the mage tower rises from the ground. It can be built as wide and high as possible, and it can be built 10 or 20 floors upward. Not only the needs of the mages, but also the needs of the dragon clan. This mage tower must have at least 1 to 2 floors, and it must be able to accommodate the dragon's true form. The scale of such a mage tower can be imagined. There are only about 100 people in total, excluding those from the God of Nature order. Even if a 9-story mage tower is built, there will only be 10 people on the first floor. In addition to various laboratories, energy pools, and meditation rooms, each person occupies a suite, which can barely fill the mage tower, and it doesn't look like a haunted house. What really adds to the popularity of the mage tower are the invisible servants floating around, the golems released by the alchemists, and the skeletons carried by the necromancers. Archmage Mansfield felt sorry for Gretel. With your level and arcane achievements, you should have a high-level mage tower, not the one you have in Nevis, but the half-step legendary one. It's a pity, it's a pity, it's a pity. Unfortunately, half-legendary tower spirits are already the upper limit of what the Magic Council can produce. Further up, it can't be achieved by production alone. It has to grow with the mage tower, solve countless problems for the mage, and even accompany the mage to experience the leap across the legendary chasm. In short, it requires resources, time, and opportunities. The only thing he could bring from the council and install in the mage tower for Gretel was this half-legendary tower spirit. Gretel will not stay on Dragon Island forever. This mage tower may have to be dismantled and taken away in the future. It also has to be made movable. The tower spirit, energy pool, and the most critical components must all be removable. "Oh, thank you for traveling all the way," Greet thanked him respectfully. When his first mage tower activated the spirit, Archmage Mansfield personally came over to perform the construction wisdom awakening technique on him and taught him how to synchronize with the tower spirit center. After he ran to the Eagle Kingdom, he built a mage tower there and occupied the territory on behalf of the Parliament. It was also this archmage who traveled across the ocean. Unexpectedly, in a roundabout way, the original 3rd-level mage became a 15th-level high-level mage, building a possible temporary mage tower on Dragon Island, and the great mage of Mansfield came all the way to do this. "It's nothing, it's all for the Parliament." Archmage Mansfield smiled kindly at him and stepped into the empty mage tower. The tower spirit made in advance has been installed inside, and 2 high-level mages of the transformation system are standing behind him, ready. Further on, a group of mid to high-level and mid-level magicians stood at various positions in the magic circle, ready to output power and release the constructed wisdom technique. "Come, Master Nordmark, stand here and get ready to control the center of the mage tower." Archmage Mansfield smiled kindly at Greet. "A mage tower needs a master. This project belongs to you. You have the final say on this mage tower no matter what." A young mage back then had to wear a lot of spiritual power amplifying equipment, constantly pour spiritual power potions, and a high-level mage didn't dare to relax for a moment to guard him before he could take over a mage tower. But this time, Greet stood there calmly, leaning on an oak staff. There was no need to make any extra preparations, and there was no need for any care. When the magic is activated, powerful energy flows from the underground magic crystal mine into the energy pool, and then reaches every node of the mage tower along the preset energy channels. Every laboratory, every meditation room, every magic circle used to control the mage tower or provide convenience for the mage, every study, bedroom, conference room. Finally, the surging energy concentrated in the center of the tower spirit, pushing the mobile tower spirit to gradually activate. Greet's mental power penetrated into the center of the tower spirit, and at the moment when the wisdom enlightenment technique was completed, it was easily connected. There is really a huge difference between the 15th level high-level mage and the junior mage back then. Archmage Mansfield sighed secretly. He wiped the sweat off his forehead, took a few breaths, and smiled at Gretel. "I'm so old, I just cast such a spell, and I'm so tired." "Okay, you make arrangements, the old man needs to take a rest. After everyone is settled, I can go back." Thanks to the development of the New World and the Eagle Country, resources and raw materials have been extremely abundant recently, and the manufacturing tasks of the council are still quite heavy. Just for the large airships, one is laying the keel, one is making the frame, and one has already built the overall structure and is laying the internal magic circle. There are still 5 small and medium-sized airships under construction, not to mention various other large golems, large magic instruments, various equipment, and scrolls. At the critical moment, if he, a high-level mage specializing in transformation and alchemy, didn't work hard at home, wouldn't it be too much of a delay? Greet also did his part. Even if his level is low, even if the 9 high-level mages he leads, including his senior sister, are 3-4 levels higher than him, the project is his project, and the mage tower is his mage tower. He first assigned the top and 14th floors of the 15-story mage tower to himself. The control center of the mage tower was usually on the top floor, and these 2 floors belonged to the owner of the mage tower, which was a conventional allocation method. The 13th floor is set as the conference floor, the 12th and 11th floors belong to the plasticity school led by the senior sister, and the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors belong to the transformation school, allowing them to allocate themselves. Used for manufacturing, used to study dragon shape transformation, used to study dragon blood. The 7th floor belongs to the protection school, which is equivalent to adding a layer of barrier to the waist of the mage tower. If the upper part is exploded, it will not affect the lower part, and if the lower part is exploded, it will not affect the upper part. The 6th and 5th floors belong to the conjuration school. The god of nature religion originally did not want to occupy the territory in the mage tower and planned to establish another territory around it, but Gretel forcefully blocked one floor. You can live outside, but you can't live without it. My teacher, why don't you even have a place to live in my mage tower? The 4th floor belongs to the order of the god of nature. The 3rd and 2nd floors are the functional floors. The meditation room, energy pool, library, and dining hall are all here. The 1st floor opens the door to welcome guests. What? And Black Crow Swamp? Come, welcome to the 1st and 2nd underground floors. After stuffing people in so boldly, Gretel clapped his hands and began to dismantle the tasks and assign them to the magicians who came over. The work of measuring chromosomes is left to Black Crow Swamp, the work of optimizing and transforming spells is left to the School of Conjuration, the work of studying the body structure of dragons is left to the School of Change, and the work of optimizing artificial insemination is left to the School of Change. The tasks were assigned one by one, and finally, Gretel bit the bullet and stood in front of senior sister Philby. Little Greet, that's good, you've grown up. Philby smiled half-heartedly, leaning on the edge of the desk, supporting the desk with one hand and leaning towards Gretel. Whether it's assigning floors or assigning jobs, everything is done well. Come on, what job are you going to assign to senior sister? Don't pick an easy job. Senior sister came all the way here just to be the leader. Senior sister. Even though Gretel was mentally prepared, his heartbeat was still beating faster when he was looked at by his senior sister. During the Battle of the Straits, this senior sister's heroic appearance as she stepped into the void, with steel needles like rain around her, sweeping across the sea, is still vivid in my mind. He knew that the senior sister looked smiling, but in fact she was not that easy to talk to. If she is not satisfied with the work she has arranged for her, if it is not instructive enough, God knows how she will be treated after the arrangement continues. First, the optimization and iteration of the microscope. Greet settled down and arranged everything. Archmage Philby raised her eyebrows and said confidently, 3 generations have been optimized before. The latest products, as well as the entire optimization ideas, are all delivered to your floor. You can see it when you go back. Secondly, during the transformation process, the chromosome changes of the transformed object must be closely monitored, as well as the energy fluctuations during the chromosome changes. I already have a plan for this. Once the transformation circle is imported, it will start operating immediately. It is impossible for Gretel to open the core technology of transformation circle to all magicians participating in the project without any reason. The method he used was to burn the magic array into the tower spirit center, allowing magicians to call. As for how much you can perceive and learn during the calling process, that is up to you. Any more? Archmage Philby frowned slightly, looking dissatisfied. These two tasks can only be described as doing things and are not of much help to her own development. Hey, as my own junior brother, can you give me some special treatment, senior sister? Of course there are special treatments. Greet launched the third task with some anxiety. Senior sister, regarding the analysis of chromosome points, I hope you can go one step further and analyze their essence. For example, the point that has this effect, what molecules are it made of, and what is its structure? You want me to rub the electron stream with my hands again? Archmage Philby finally felt a bit of a challenge. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. Okay. Come on. Come on, senior sister. Senior sister, the competition is high. Senior sister, I'm waiting for you to conduct genetic sequencing. Thanks to @ for the 4,000 starting coins. Thanks to @ Joyan and @ bookfriend 2022111821201613 for the 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1505. Analyze chromosome locations. The first step is to pick out a specific point from the chromosome. You used the limited wishing technique to cut before. Archmage Philby stared at Greet in disbelief. I know this guy is rich, I know this guy is lavish, but this is too lavish. Limited wishing technique. The kind that gives you a diamond in one shot. Not counting the value of other casting materials. Even though she was already an 18th level magician, almost at the top of the mage sequence, doing experiments like this was still so expensive that it made her heartache. After all, she not only has to be responsible for herself, but she also has to raise a group of disciples and an entire experimental team. Every piece of equipment, every experimental material, and every ounce of energy used in the experiment must be signed and approved by her. Even if these instruments and materials can really produce results, the accumulation of small numbers into big numbers can make her heartache so much that she trembles with every stroke. Little Gretel spends money so lavishly. Perhaps, up to now, the money he has spent is not his own money, right? Hey, that's the early days. Greet scratched his head sheepishly. In the early stages of research, there are always some detours to take. Anyway, he has money in hand, and artificial diamonds can be used anyway, and senior brother is willing to give him diamonds by hand. Now I basically use the magic circle. I have been using the limited wishing technique, and I really can't afford it. But senior sister, the accuracy of my previous operations could only be accurate to a certain point. The operations that magic can perform are closely related to the magician's perception. Previously, under a microscope, one could only see specific points on chromosomes, bright colors, dark colors, and the golden color that represents the extraordinary. Then cut, paste, copy, all operations can only be based on these points. Gretel's idea is to take this exploration one step further. For example, adenine, guanine, thymine, uracil. Of course, the chromosomes in this world may not be composed of these purines and pyrimidines. What are the structural formulas of these purines and pyrimidines? Gretel thought hard and found that he might have to read organic chemistry in his memory to get the answer. But that's not important, not at all. Greet didn't want to go deep into the field of organic chemistry, and he didn't want to delve into the molecular formulas, structural formulas, etc. of these things. The world is so big and there are so many magicians. You can expect other magicians to complete this kind of work. Gretel's goal is just to see finer chromosome segments so that he can easily operate on them. That's okay. Archmage Philby frowned and took over the job. Seeing the embarrassed appearance of his senior sister, Gretel was also very sorry. Senior sister, don't be anxious and try slowly. I think that since the microscope can see chromosomes, it should be able to see more things. If you understand electronic games and video games, you should be able to have a direction. Alas, he actually knows how to do it, such as running electrophoresis or something. But he didn't understand the specifics of how to run, how to make the gel, and how to adjust the electricity. I only know that students who run gels in the laboratory, even if they have the right equipment, the right gel, and the right step instructions, often do it like crazy. It's done crookedly or broken, and the resulting strips are so faded that they're almost invisible, or there are no strips at all. In short, if a newbie goes on the road and runs the rubber 10 times, he will be thankful if he can get it right once. And if you start from scratch, the difficulty will probably reach the sky. Let senior sister figure it out, maybe she can find another way. Archmage Philby plunged into research. Gretel heaved a sigh of relief and ran to see these people from the Order of the God of Nature. Led by Elder Knox, the priests of the God of Nature received a big surprise as soon as they landed. Legend. Legend. Two natural legends. Although one is a warrior, he is also an elf after all, with natural affinity, the other is a rare legendary ancient tree. They happily obtained permission from the legendary ancient tree and set up a residence and laboratory in the woods half a mile away from Servilia. Standing next to the ancient tree, even if you just meditate, the efficiency of absorbing the power of nature can be greatly increased. Not to mention that if you have any questions in daily life, you can go to the legendary ancient tree for advice. If you have no questions, you can also talk to her and broaden your horizons. The 10 nature priests, plus Anivia, who did not occupy a quota in the order, were so happy that they did not even stay in the mage tower, and stayed around the ancient trees day and night. After combing the forest and absorbing the power of nature, it didn't take long to integrate the natural power of the entire forest within 100 miles, which was enough to provide an energy source for the experiment. This supply is so timely. Gretel settled down here, and not long after, the dragons swarmed in again. Is the mage tower built? Is the manpower in place? When can you start working for us? Speed. 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 Don't worry, those who come here this time are all experienced high-level mages. Gretel had to climb out of the mage tower and explain the progress to the customers. Once they are familiar with the work process and the operation of the magic circle, they will be able to start working soon. Just in time, we will complete the transformation of Vasquez dependents first and let them practice their skills. Before, I had one person, and it took 3 days to transform a dependent. Now there are 100 people. Well, with at least 10 high-level mages leading the team, I should be able to transform 10 people in 3 days, right? Can it be completed in a month? It's not that easy. Gretel sweated. Magicians have different research directions and different jobs they can do. When it comes to the transformation of dependents, so far, Black Crow Swamp is doing the work. Get in line. Go to room 1 for the chromosome test. Go to room 2 for the physical fitness test. The transformation plan is formulated in room 3. What, you don't even know 1, 2, or 3? You can't expect these barbarians, giants, wild boar people, etc. to be literate, and Warcraft is even less likely to be literate. Find someone to take them. Every subject must be taken by someone. No one? Not enough manpower? Release all your skeletons and zombies. Since when has Black Crow Swamp been short of manpower? Idiot. You won't put the demon wolf in a cage and let 2 skeletons push the cage. I don't want to hear people crying to me again, saying that their zombies were eaten by the demon wolf. On the first and second underground floors, there was a lively and busy scene. All the necromancers who came here this time have experience in chromosome detection operations. At the very least, it is not a problem to independently take samples, put them into the microscope and obtain the results independently. And transformation? Transform the dependents. Black Crow Swamp's experience in transforming living bodies, no, dead bodies is much richer than Gretel's. After they took over the transformation work, at least they were much more efficient than Greet in formulating chromosome transformation plans. Greet makes one plan a day, and they make 10 in a day. In comparison, the order of nature is more tragic. To transform the dragon blood dependence, the energy pool is the main one, the magic circle is the main one, the power of nature is the supplement, and the healing technique is the supplement. Therefore, the nature order had to take turns pinching their noses, squatting on the first and second floors underground, and dealing with the necromancers every day. In the dark basement, mobilize the power of nature to maintain the vitality of the dragon blood relatives during the transformation process, or stare at the images given by magnetic resonance and carefully throw healing spells to treat those dragon blood relatives. It feels so uncomfortable. Fortunately, these necromancers don't have the smell of corpses, otherwise they would really be suffocated to death. Didn't you say that this time we are mainly studying dragon fertility? When can I start researching dragon eggs? Although the nature order does not complain a lot, it still murmurs in private. However, studying dragon eggs and dragon fertility cannot be carried out immediately. There is still a lot of preparatory work. Masters, I leave the physiological structure of the dragon clan to you. Gretel confidently assigned the task to the change department. Don't you like studying dragons? Aren't you good at transforming into dragon form? Dragons cannot be dissected directly, but dragon-blooded lizards, dragon-blooded alligators, etc. are no problem, and pseudo-dragons are no problem of course, you need to use them sparingly. Even the dragon beast, the dragon clan sent 4 heads, half male and half female. This cannot be dissected, but there is no problem in keeping it for observation. Occasionally drawing some blood and testing the chromosomes will not offend the dragon clan. Everyone, please work harder. Whether we can make progress in dragon transformation depends on this wave. Archmage Josefini, who specializes in transformation, has a red face and cheers for his team members. We haven't had a decisive result for too long. If we want to take the transformation technique a step further, we must have the opportunity to directly observe and study the dragons. The first goal is to analyze the way dragons breed dragon eggs, starting with dragon blood lizards and pseudo-dragons. In the first group, each person completed the dissection of 2 lizards and was required to draw a detailed pattern of the reproductive system. They were not allowed to eat until they completed the task. The second group, analyzing the chromosomes of pseudo-dragon hatchlings. 10 sets every day. The third group, based on the analysis results of the second group, targetedly enhances a certain group of chromosomes and observes the results after the enhancement. Work harder. Everyone starts working. Our task is very heavy. The magicians of the transformation system wailed. For such a heavy task, they have to work at least 10 hours a day. A slight slip of the hand, one failure, and it starts in 12 hours. Counting eating, drinking, going to the toilet, and 8 hours of sleep every day, they almost have no time to meditate. Although everyone is here to do research, the growth of personal strength cannot be left behind. It's a pity that Archmage Josefini did not listen to these arguments. After giving the order, he rushed to the alchemy team next door. Quick! Microscope! Install it for us. Everyone must have one before the end of today. Everyone has one? Why don't you die? In the midst of the chaos, Greet called Leon Carlos alone and gave him a glorious and arduous task. You continue to run the hospital. You have seen a lot of human diseases, but you have seen very little about these humanoid creatures. During your growth stage, it will be good for you to learn more about different races.